Hey, how's it going? And today I'm just going to walk you through how you can create a multiple choice test that gives you feedback on how many correct answers you're getting. And this is an example of where you might want to use verse because it adds functionality that's not available with the existing creative devices as far as I know. There's not a way there might be, but I don't know how you would configure it. The ability to keep track of the correct answers, and I don't know another device that could quite do that. You might be able to finagle something together, but it probably take more time than if you just did it in verse. So anyway, to get going with this, I'm just in a blank island project, and I'm just going to walk you through what I've done. I think this would take too long if I went through every single step. But basically what I have is a trigger device in the scene, and I have three pop-up devices. And these are really super functional to have. If I hit play, this is kind of what we got. So I hit play, and just let me show you what we've got to start with, and then we'll go through the code a little bit, and I'll leave it on the screen so you can copy it if you're interested in doing something like this. So it just takes a minute to load up. So that's all we have in this scene is we've got our verse device, we've got a trigger, and then we've got three pop-up devices. And it looks like we're ready to go. So this is how this is going to work. So I spawn in, and once I step on the trigger, the first quiz will come up, and you'll see up on the top where it says correct answers is 0. So I come over here, and the first question comes up. How many days are in a week? Well, I think there's 7. So see how now it says correct answers 1. And then it says, who is the President of the United States? And I'm going to get one wrong. I'll just say Happy Gilmore. Nothing. What is Unreal Engine? A tool for making games. Correct answers 2. And that's it. How this works is once I have these pop-up devices in there, I'll just walk through the settings. Under title, you can write in the question. Here, response type, you choose how many buttons you want. I chose 6. And then the default back button, I usually put that as the last button, which is button 6. And then here, then, if you have 6 buttons, you'll have 6 possible answers. And again, I mentioned these are stored in array. So button 1 is actually an array index of 0. Button 2 is 1. Button 3 is 2. 4 is 3. So it's a little confusing at first. But basically, you'd look down here and say the correct answer is 7, which is an array position of 4. And then scroll down a little bit more, and it'll say user options, and we show this pop-up device when the trigger is triggered. So we select trigger and untriggered. And then we go to the next pop-up device, and it's the same thing all over again. We write in our question, we create 6 buttons, we write in the answers. The correct answer in this case is in an array position of 1, so it'd be 0, 1. So we'd write that down. 1 is the correct answer position in our array. And then this, under show, what is going to trigger this device is when on any responding button from the previous pop-up device. So that's what's going to trigger the second device is the first device. As soon as one button is pressed, the answer is selected, which is kind of great then because then the person can't keep pressing buttons. They make one selection and we're on to the next question. They can't press multiple buttons, which saves us on the programming side. And then we just go on to the third device, and it's the same thing. We choose 6 buttons, we come up with a question, we enter our answers, and in here, the correct answer is going to be button 3, which is in array position number 2. So then you'd write that down. Our array positions for the correct button answers are 4, 1, and 2. And then down here, under function show, it's this device, the third device, is going to be triggered by the second device when any button is pressed. And that's all we have to do to set up our device. So then we come up here and we right click here and we add a new verse project and we open it up, and then here is all our code that I'll kind of walk over real quick here. So on the top are all our modules. Here is where we create editable instances of our devices so we can initialize them. So where that is we drag our device onto the, so if I delete this right now and I just drag this onto the scene, there's my verse device, and you'll see I have to pair it to these pop-up devices. So I'll just click here to do the first one, here to do the second one, and here to do the third one. So that's what that's all about in the code. Whenever I do @editable, this is how you basically initialize a instance of the device to be able to connect with it. These next two lines, player and UI button, are just for our button interface. We have two counters in this that we're incrementing in here. The one just called counter is kind of cycling through the array of values. There's only 3 array values, but if there were 10, it's going 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that counter is just kind of cycling through our array one at a time. And correct count is a counter for counting how many correct answers the player gets. Here, this line here on line 29, this is the line of code that initializes our array. And then text for UI, this is where we would write what we want to be seen on the button here. Down here on begin play is here we create basically methods or functions for the device to call, and there has to be one for each device. So here this is called, the device is called pop-up press. That's for the first device, pop-up device, pop-up press 1, and then pop-up press 2. And these are all basically just the same, but because they're all different devices, they all need their own method so that it's registered individually for each device, because each device is different. So you can see it's my pop-up here, my pop-up 1, my pop-up 2, and then that's referencing these device. My pop-up is a device. This is the event they all share in common. Subscribe means you're able to call a method that you've written yourself. So pop-up press, these are all 3 methods that I've written myself. We can implement once they're called. So subscribe basically just means the device wants to connect to a method or trigger a method that we've written within our verse code. And then if we look at this, I have a print string in there just to so I can keep things clear in my mind of what's happening. And then I've basically written 3 methods here. So one is my, what I call answered right function. And what it does is if the person gets the answer right, then we increment the correct count by 1. And the logic for this is up here on the call. So what it does is pop-up press, and then an array returns 2 values, the agent and the number, the position of the button that was pressed in the array. And then we print this just so that I know what's going on. And what we do is here with the counter, what we're doing is we're cycling through the array to pull out the answer, to pull out whatever the correct answer is. And then this is the logic is if the answer matches the number that was selected by the person, basically if the person pressed button 2 and that's the right answer, then go ahead and implement the answered right method. If they didn't do that, then we just implement the answered wrong method. And either way, we increment the counter by 1. Our counter down here that's counting through the array. I don't know if I can get all of this on the screen at one time. This is the first half of it, and then this is the second half. And here, this code all is just the same, but there's one for each device. One method for each device has its own device. And then the answered wrong, this is just a print string. The player doesn't get any message if it's wrong. And then answered right, if they get it right, then the correct count increments by 1. And it's initially set up here. If we look up here under correct count, it's initialized as 0. And the counter is initialized at 0, which is the very first item in the array. And that's why every time we go through the whole thing, at the very end of it, it increments the counter by 1. So the next time around, it's going to the second item in the array. And then under each method, it's comparing what button did the person pick in the array, And does that match what the answer in the array is? So here's our answers up here, 4, 1, and 2. So we're just cycling through the array of the correct answers, and here in the method matching that, seeing if that matches to the button that was pressed, the array value that's associated with each button. And if it does match, then that's the right answer. So, and then here at the very bottom, this is just displays our button on the screen. If you wanted to, at the very end of the test, you could actually then add up here at editable, you could add a HUD device and then have a big message display on the screen, something like, congratulations, you've won. You could also add more logic in here, like if the correct count number is greater than a certain amount, something else happens. So there's a lot of logic that you could build into this. I want to say there's no one right or wrong way to set up your code. I mean, there's different ways you can do it, and of course you try to be as efficient as you can. At the end of the day, everybody might do everything a little bit different. So that's all I had for today. I hope you found this helpful. Take care, have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time.